site is experiencing multiple Keter and Euclid level containment breaches. Full site lockdown initiated.
The SCP Foundation is home to some of the most dangerous anomalies ever contained. In the chaos of a breach, survival depends on more than just running fast. It depends on what entity you come face to face with. When the alarms blare and the facility descends into chaos, there's some SCPs you might manage to outrun, outsmart, or avoid if you're lucky. But others, a direct encounter means the end, no questions asked. In this breakdown, we'll be looking into some of the SCPs from the SCP Containment Breach game, and whether you could survive a direct encounter. We'll examine how they hunt, how they kill, and whether there's any realistic chance of making it out alive once you cross their path.
So, you really don't want to leave this place alive, do you?
SCP-035 is a porcelain comedy mask, but don't be fooled by its fragile appearance. Anyone who comes near it or even just looks at it feels an overwhelming urge to put it on. Once worn, SCP-035 immediately overrides the host's brain activity, erasing their consciousness and replacing it with its own. The victim is essentially dead, their body now nothing more than a rapidly decaying shell controlled by the entity within the mask. Within days, the host rots into a mummified corpse, forcing SCP-035 to seek a new vessel. But the mask doesn't need a host to be dangerous. SCP-035 is incredibly manipulative, using its voice to coerce, persuade, and psychologically dominate anyone who listens. It has driven multiple people to self-harm, reduced others to broken servants, and openly boasts of its deep understanding of the human mind, claiming it can twist anyone's thoughts given enough time. While SCP-035 is dangerous enough on its own, it becomes far deadlier when possessing a host. In this state, it gains the ability to actively pursue targets, manifesting writhing red tentacles from the ground to snare or kill its victims. Possessed hosts also become unnaturally resistant to damage, allowing SCP-035 to endure far more punishment than a normal body could. Combined with its manipulative intelligence, this makes a possessed SCP-035 nearly impossible to escape once it's chosen you as prey. Surprisingly, your odds can be decent if it does not possess an individual, if you are able to resist its voice, and don't touch it, that is. As long as you never wear the mask, or allow yourself to be manipulated into releasing it, you can walk away alive. The real risk comes from underestimating its influence. Once you engage in a conversation with 035, you may be already compromised without realizing it.
Hello? Is there someone there?
SCP-939 are large, pack-based predatory creatures. They are vaguely canine in shape, black eyes, instead hunting through heat-sensitive pit organs, eye spots running along its back which are sensitive to light, and highly sensitive hearing. Their bodies are covered in a red, textured skin, and their jaws are filled with dozens of sharp teeth, designed for tearing apart prey. They are terrifyingly fast, able to sprint on all fours with incredible power. What makes SCP-939 especially deadly isn't just its physical prowess, it's its ability to mimic human voices. SCP-939 perfectly imitates the voices of its past victims, often calling out for help in familiar tones. It will use this to lure humans towards it, exploiting compassion, curiosity, or confusion. In Containment Breach, SCP-939 stalks hallways whispering or crying out lines like,
Hello?
or,
Is someone there?
This draws the player closer, only for the creature to ambush them. Unlike SCP-035, which manipulates psychologically, SCP-939 manipulates instinct. You hear another human suffering and your brain urges you to respond. That second of hesitation or misjudgment is often fatal. On top of that, SCP-939 doesn't need sight to hunt you. It relies on sound. Running, breathing too heavily, Opening doors too quickly, or even stepping too loudly can give away your position. They may not always detect you immediately, but if you panic, they will. Once SCP-939 is aware of you, survival becomes nearly impossible in close quarters. They sprint at high speeds and attack relentlessly. Unlike some other SCPs that might lose interest, SCP-939 hunts with pack-like determination. One single mistake can trigger a chase that you won't escape without luck or perfect stealth. If more than one SCP-939 is in the area, they can coordinate ambushes. One distracting with a voice, another waiting in the shadows. Containment procedures stress avoiding unnecessary noise, as this is the only effective survival tactic.
The pestilence is here, and I can sense it.
SCP-049 appears to be a medieval plague doctor, dressed in the traditional black robes and mask. However, the clothing is not clothing at all. It is a part of its biological structure. Despite its human-like appearance, SCP-049 is an anomalous humanoid with a disturbing obsession curing what it calls the pestilence. What the pestilence actually is never clearly defined. To 049, it seems to represent some abstract corruption of humanity, though no medical examination has ever confirmed the presence of this so-called disease. Regardless, once SCP-049 identifies someone as infected, it will immediately try to cure them. Its method of curing is instant, lethal contact. SCP-049 only needs to touch a human for them to collapse and die within seconds. Afterward, it performs a crude surgical procedure using instruments it seemingly pulls from nowhere. These surgeries are grotesque and always fatal in the conventional sense. The result of the surgery is horrific. The victim is resurrected as a SCP-049-2 instance, a zombie-like creature stripped of higher brain functions, but animated and hostile. These entities follow 049 and attack living humans, spreading carnage further. Unlike SCP-939, which hunts like an animal, SCP-049 is calm, patient, and eerily intelligent. It speaks fluent human languages and is capable of engaging in long, polite conversations. However, this passive behavior only lasts until it decides you are infected. Once that decision is made, it will relentlessly pursue you. SCP-049 doesn't need to run. It cannot be killed, and never stops pursuing. A single touch means instant death, and if you manage to flee, you may soon encounter one of its SCP-049-2 creations, further boxing you in. SCP-682, known universally as the hard-to-destroy reptile, is perhaps the single most infamous entity contained, or more accurately, barely contained by the SCP Foundation. On the surface, it resembles a massive reptilian creature, but to describe it as merely a lizard would be an insult to its true nature. SCP-682 is intelligent, adaptive, and utterly malevolent. Its hatred for life is not passive. It actively seeks to annihilate anything that dares exist in its presence. The creature's resilience is its most horrifying trait. No matter what weapon humanity has thrown at it, nuclear fire, biological warfare, corrosive acids, and even other SCPs, the results have always been the same: failure. 682 adapts with terrifying speed. It heals catastrophic wounds within minutes, grows new defenses to counter whatever injured it, and returns to its rampage as though nothing happened. When it is injured, it does not retreat or panic like most living creatures. It learns, grows, and comes back stronger. It is not simply indestructible, it's evolving, endlessly in real time. What separates 682 from mindless monsters like SCP-939 or SCP-096 is its intelligence. It speaks fluently, reasons with its captors, and even mocks humanity's attempts to kill it. Containment logs show it outwitting security protocols, exploiting weaknesses, and deliberately causing fear before it kills. It's not driven by hunger, instinct, or survival. Its motivation is pure hatred. It kills because it wants to erase all living things from existence, and it relishes the process. In SCP Containment Breach, you never directly confront SCP-682, and that's for good reason. Even in a game filled with nightmarish anomalies, pitting the player against 682 would be pointless. Instead, you hear it. The low, guttural roars that echo through the site remind you it is there, somewhere, ripping through the walls, crushing vehicles, tearing apart entire sections of the facility, and in the final moments of the game, you glimpse its destruction firsthand, as it attacks a helicopter, ensuring that even escape is futile. That small scene perfectly encapsulates the hopelessness of humanity's struggle against it. This makes SCP-682 not just a physical threat, but an existential one. The Foundation cannot destroy it, cannot contain it forever, and cannot predict the full extent of its abilities. It is the nightmare of immortality given flesh, an apex predator with no natural rival, no limit, and no mercy. Survival against SCP-682 is not just unlikely, it is impossible. SCP-066 appears to be one of the more friendly anomalies within the Foundation's containment, but this is only a surface level impression. At first glance, it looks like a tangled ball of red yarn with eyes stitched into it, but beneath this unassuming exterior lies a deeply unpredictable and increasingly hostile anomaly. Originally, SCP-066 was relatively harmless. When someone said the word Eric in its presence, it would produce a small, pleasant melody, nothing more than a quirky anomaly. Strange, but not dangerous. However, something changed after 2008. On April 18th, 2008, a D-Class personnel attempted to cut SCP-066 with scissors. The SCP moved away, making a squeaking sound, and then spoke the phrase, "Are you Eric?" After the D-Class answered no, SCP-066 morphed into its current form and started emitting loud, clashing, sharp, short notes until the D-Class was escorted from the room. Its most infamous ability is its tendency to produce music at catastrophic volume levels. The best known example is when it plays Beethoven's Second Symphony at over 140 decibels, loud enough to rupture eardrums and cause permanent damage. 3 personnel were left completely deaf, while 8 others sustained lasting hearing loss. This was not an isolated freak occurrence. It established a pattern. SCP-066 now demonstrates that it can generate bursts of deafening sound, capable of disabling, injuring, or even killing those unlucky enough to be near it. The danger of SCP-066 lies in how sudden and unpredictable these auditory assaults are. Unlike predatory SCPs that stalk or chase, 066's attack is instantaneous. One moment, it sits silently in containment. The next, it fills a room with sound so loud it bypasses pain and jumps straight into permanent damage. At such decibel levels, it isn't just hearing at risk. Internal organs, blood vessels, and brain tissue can also be compromised if the exposure is prolonged. If you are within range when it begins to play, deafness or worse is nearly guaranteed. Protective equipment may help you slightly, but few personnel have ever walked away unscathed. Long-term survival depends on avoiding the creature entirely, and never allowing it the opportunity to unleash its sympathy of destruction. You may live, but survival will almost certainly come with lasting damage. SCP-173, arguably the most iconic SCP ever made. At first glance, it resembles a crude, concrete statue, humanoid in shape, with a distorted, unsettling face dabbled with paint. Its form is rigid and immobile, until you blink. The entity is capable of moving at incredible speeds when not being observed, snapping necks, or strangling victims before they can react. The key rule is simple: maintain eye contact at all times. The moment a person blinks, looks away, or loses sight of SCP-173, it will close the distance and instantly kill. Even security footage doesn't seem to slow it. Only direct human observation can anchor it in place. What makes SCP-173 especially horrifying is that it doesn't need to chase. It waits. All it requires is a single moment of weakness, a lapse in attention, an involuntary blink, or a power outage that plunges the facility into darkness. The inevitability of blinking makes encounters with it feel like a war against your own biology. Containment protocols stress that at least 3 personnel must enter its chamber at once, cycling blinks to ensure it never has a window to attack. This alone speaks volumes about how difficult it is for a single person to deal with. Without backup, you're already dead. Surviving SCP-173 is nearly impossible on your own. Its speed, precision, and reliance on the inevitability of human blinking make it one of the most lethal anomalies in existence. Even armed guards and containment specialists rely entirely on coordination and strict procedure, and those safeguards collapse instantly during a breach. Once you're alone with SCP-173, the outcome is already decided. SCP-096 is a tall, gaunt humanoid entity that stands around 2.4 meters in height. Its limbs are unusually long and thin, giving it an unnatural, unsettling silhouette. Most of the time, 096 appears docile, pacing or sitting quietly, its face buried in its hands. At first, it seems like a creature that simply wants to be left alone, but this calm is only the surface. The true horror of SCP-096 is tied to its face. Anyone who sees its face, whether directly, in a photograph, or even on video footage, triggers an unstoppable reaction. The moment someone views its face, SCP-096 enters a state of uncontrollable rage and distress, screaming, crying, and clawing itself before it locks onto the viewer's exact location. Distance doesn't matter, barriers don't matter. Once triggered, SCP-096 will sprint across any terrain at incredible speeds to reach its target, obliterating anything that stands in its way. There are reports of 096 running across mountains, through blizzards, even pursuing targets in aircraft or submarines. No obstacle can slow it down. Once it reaches its victim, the outcome is always the same. The target is torn apart within seconds. After the kill, 096 returns to a passive state, sitting quietly once more, as though nothing happened. This makes SCP-096 one of the most terrifying anomalies in the SCP Foundation's catalog, because there is no safety. Even an accidental glimpse of its face in a corrupted camera feed or blurry photograph seals your fate. The Foundation has gone to extreme lengths to censor and obscure its presence in documentation, but the threat of accidental exposure is ever present. There's no bargaining with SCP-096, no fight, and no hiding. If you never see its face, you are safe, but the second you do, your fate is sealed. It does not matter if you're across the world, hidden behind reinforced walls, it will come for you, and it will kill you. SCP-096 is not just dangerous, it is inescapable. Your only hope of survival is never triggering it in the first place. SCP-106, better known as the Old Man, is one of the most horrifying predators in the Foundation's catalog. At first glance, it looks like a rotting, elderly humanoid, its skin blackened and decayed, as though it's perpetually decomposing. But this appearance is only the surface of something far worse. 106 is not bound by the physical rules of the world. It can phase through solid matter, slipping through walls, doors, and ceilings as if they aren't there. Metal corrodes and rots in its presence, crumbling into rust as it passes by. Any barrier, no matter how strong, eventually becomes useless once 106 decides to come for you. What makes 106 particularly terrifying is not just its ability to move freely, but what it does to its victims. Rather than killing outright, 106 prefers to drag prey into its pocket dimension, a personal hellscape of warped corridors and shifting geometry. Victims trapped inside are tortured physically and psychologically, often for days, before finally being killed. Sometimes 106 releases them back into reality, mangled and broken as a message. The implication is clear. It doesn't just hunt, it plays. Unlike some anomalies that lash out only when provoked, 106 is described as being sadistic. It seems to hunt for amusement rather than necessity. This makes encounters deeply unpredictable. It may stalk silently for hours before striking, or it may phase in front of you without warning. Against SCP-106, the odds are brutally stacked against you. Its ability to bypass any physical defense, its sadistic hunting style, and the inevitability of its pocket dimension make it one of the most hopeless SCPs to face. The Foundation has tried to elaborate traps, even sacrificing humans as live bait, but nothing has led to true containment. Your best bet is to run and hope for some stroke of luck. And that brings us to the end of the SCPs you cannot survive from the SCP Containment Breach game. From statues that move when you blink to plague doctors who kill with a touch, to an ancient predator that drags you into its own hell. These entities prove that sometimes survival isn't a matter of luck or strategy. Sometimes it's just impossible. If you made it this far, consider yourself lucky. For now. Because the Foundation's archives are endless, and we've only scratched the surface. If you'd like me to continue this series with more SCPs in the future, let me know, and let me know which ones you want covered. But be careful what you choose, some knowledge cannot be unlearned. And until next time,